Welcome to the next edition of the Cranky Curmudgeon Corner. My name is Paul Thomas, and tonight we are going to be talking about Q Anon. With us on our panel, Dan Thomas. Hello, Dan.
Hello.
And we got a couple new rookies. We got Whitney Brooks. Whitney.
Hello.
And Alan Hessler. Hello, Alan.
Hi, guys.
We needed a little narrative to start us off. Jim and Ron Watkins are a father-son internet team. Jim made his fortune as a young man creating and managing porn websites. Frederick Brennan created a platform called 4chan and became a business partner with the Watkins in the early 2000s. 4chan merged into another platform called 8chan, which had Ron as the site administrator under the name Code Monkey. 8chan became the almost exclusive distribution vehicle for Q's cryptic messaging. Eventually, Fred became disenchanted with the Watkins and increasingly alarmed at the batshit crazy allegations that Q is making via 8chan. Stories about Hillary Clinton's DC pizza shop providing children as sex slaves and later serving said children as menu items from the pizza shop's basement that didn't really exist. But when Fred decided to terminate his business relationship with the Watkins, control of 8chan remained with Jim and Ron. So, with Code Monkey maintaining his status as site administrator, Q messages kept appearing on 8chan. Meanwhile, a category of Q followers known as Q tubers were reposting the messages they found on 8chan to more mainstream platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc., thus sending Q out to a much larger audience. In addition to the mysteriously cryptic messaging, Q was consistently pushing the theme that Donald Trump would defeat deep state, Satan worshiping, pedophiliac, baby eating liberals like Hillary, Nancy, AOC. Public allegiances, again, for Q were on full display by famous Trump surrogates like Michael Flynn, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Roger Stone, and Lauren Boebert. Fred's animosity against the Watkins became a full-fledged battle for internet supremacy. Initially, Fred succeeded in getting 8chan shut down, which ended all of Q's messaging for the time it was shut down, until Ron managed to start up another site called 8kun, administered by Code Monkey, where Q miraculously reappeared with the messages that Trump's re-election was the only chance for good to triumph over evil. When Biden got elected, the Q movement went from stopping the deep state libtards to stopping the steal. Ron achieved a new celebrity status by going to Twitter and appearing on CNN. He even bragged at one point that the only person in the whole world would have more Twitter followers was President Trump himself. Then came January 6th. We all saw how many Q banners and t-shirts stormed the Capitol. Subsequently, Trump and the Q postings were kicked off Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc., thus limiting Q's audience by millions. Now, that is about all I know to date. Now, is there anything more to add or dispute about this brief narrative that I just laid out? Dan, do you know any more than I just said that our listeners need to hear?
I dispute that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert were prominent Trump surrogates prior to their recent elections. Like these are first-term Congress people. They're brand new. I'm not saying they haven't drunk the Kool-Aid, but I don't think that they were relevant as part of this conversation prior to being sworn into Congress this year.
Well, they ran their campaigns, though. I mean, they both ran a campaign to get elected. And
Yes,
they were
they
spouting
did.
this off during the campaign, right?
But I don't think you can consider them surrogates or even relevant until they actually won those campaigns.
Okay.
But other than that, I think you summarized the HBO documentary pretty nicely. But I don't have anything that I would want to add other than to say that the new people are not as relevant. Now, Michael Flynn, that's a surrogate. Sidney Powell, that's a surrogate. Boebert and Taylor Greene, I don't think are real surrogates at this point.
Okay. Thanks for citing my source of information. It was the HBO documentary. Whitney, what do you know about Q that I have laid out that you don't like, or is there what I just laid out okay in your mind?
I mean, none of it's okay. I don't like any of it. But if you were asking if I have anything to add, I don't. I agree with pretty much everything Dan said.
I'm basically talking about the historical accuracy of what I'm saying.
No, I know. I was just poking fun.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Al. Anything to dispute about what I laid out?
No, I think everything you said was completely accurate. I would like to add, I don't think the whole QAnon conspiracy like just came out of nowhere, out of the blue to make Hillary look bad or anything. I do think there was some precedent to it in that I think one of the first people to start it was Russell Brand, the actor. Actually, in 2015, he did a pretty damning expose of British Parliament of rampant pedophilia that seemed to be occurring at the highest levels of the British government, and how there did seem to be a cover-up.
Was Russell Brand with Q?
No,
he?
No.
Okay, well that's what we're talking about. We're talking
okay,
about
no,
Q
but
tonight.
I'm just saying I think that's where it started. But then
You're saying Russell Brand started it?
There were rumors long before Q started. To my knowledge, the first Q post was October 2017. But again, in 2015, there were rumors that there was pedophilia going on at high levels in the government. Now, there are
rumors
DC
all
pizza,
the time. There's all kinds of
sure.
rumors. We're talking about Q. We're talking about
okay, so
Q.
that's right, and that's what I'm getting to.
Okay, let's just talk about Q tonight. Let's not talk about anything beyond Q.
Okay, so
I'm
you
not
alluded
willing to speculate with any confidence as to how Q got started, and I don't think you are either, Al. You just brought up something about pedophilia, okay, which is different about how Q got started.
well,
Whether
Q
it was
deals with
one
pedophilia
or more
and
people sending out
children.
these cryptic messages, but later on, I'm fairly certain, and I base this on the interviews that took place on the HBO series, that Ron Watkins assumed the role of Q exclusively. It seemed initially to have an interactive Dungeons and Dragons game feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Could this be a gamer's cult gone awry, or do you have another explanation as to how this phenomenon achieved such popularity? How did Q become so popular, Al? What do you think made it so popular among the followers?
Well, I mean, one, everyone sort of loves a good conspiracy, and it
Not
could be
me.
bunk.
I don't like good conspiracies.
Well, lots of people
So don't say
do.
everyone. Some
All right,
people.
lots of people do.
I am going to disagree with you. You watched a lot of documentaries about JFK when I was growing up, and not what he did. It was a lot of who actually was the third gunman on the grassy knoll.
You got me, buddy. I did watch a lot of documentaries about JFK. I still am not sure if I'm going to buy into that. I'm like a superior conspiracy enthusiast. But we interrupted Al. I'm sorry, Al. Go ahead with your point.
No, that's okay. Again, the whole Q could be bunk. I don't know. I am not a Q person, but I haven't closed the door on it either, just based on some of the information that is out there.
What information allows you to keep the Q door open?
Well, okay, you alluded to the DC pizza parlor. I don't know how Hillary Clinton got wrapped up in that, but again, I don't think they just picked this person. It came out
of Q. That's how it came
out. No, you're right, but I don't think Q picked this person randomly because, in this restaurant, there was allegedly all these murals and paintings on the walls of assorted children being depicted as, either tortured or murdered or things like
Now,
that. And I
where do
say
you
that
get that
allegedly.
information?
Again, I say that allegedly.
information?
Again, I say that allegedly because I have not seen it with my own eyes, but that's what has been posted on the internet. Now, the
Okay,
second thing,
you're saying that
so
because it's
again,
posted on
it's
the internet, you're
right?
going to leave that as something you openly
It's
considered.
possibly right. It's possible that it was. I take it with a grain of salt, but this is what the rumors on the internet are. Now, the second one, and these aren't.
Okay, now
rumors.
let me ask you this. Let me
Go
stick
ahead.
with this for a second. What
Okay.
you say because you saw it on the internet, you're willing to consider the possibility.
Well, and I'm saying this is why Q picked this pizza parlor in specific. Not what it wasn't just a random pizza place in Washington, D.C. Because it
It was a
supposedly had these
specific
paintings.
pizza place
Yeah,
in
Comet Ping
Washington,
Pong.
D.C. And
And
the
that's
allegation
why
was that Hillary Clinton had babies in the basement, that
Yeah.
they were sex slaves and drinking their blood. That was
And
the
again,
allegation that came
yeah,
out of
and
Q.
I don't know how the Hillary Clinton thing came to being, but another part of the pizza parlor is that the owner, his name is James Alefantis. Now, and this is again a bit of a reach, but one of the rumors was that, if you write his name, James Alefantis, the French word for I love children is, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's j'aime l'enfant. So it's sort of a play on words. Again, it's a stretch. I get it. Like it doesn't, it's not a smoking gun. Yeah.
A stretch? Okay. We'll
ahead.
bring you in here before we get a little bit out of hand here. Go ahead, Whitney. What do you think about the Dungeons and Dragons gaming feel of this particular phenomenon? Or what is your explanation for its popularity?
I mean, in my experience, I haven't seen a lot of overlap between people who buy into QAnon and people who play Dungeons and Dragons, but that's just my experience. So I'm not really sure where that came from.
Honestly. But does it have I mean, it started out with this, like they sent out these messages and they were expecting responses, and there was an interactive aspect to it. So what do you think made it popular then?
A lot of people just kind of look for any reason to hate something that they're already against. And if somebody comes up with a super batshit crazy reason, then that sounds even more palatable than something as mundane as, a potential birth certificate.
Yeah, even if it doesn't sound palatable, if they're looking for an excuse to latch on to something. Dan, what do you think caused the popularity of Q?
Well, I think both Alan and Whitney have points. Like Alan brought up that it is a stretch. People do enjoy playing games. People like looking for meaning. People enjoy finding codes and clues and things like that. The live action Dungeons and Dragons are called LARPers. That stands for live action role players. I think the Liberate Michigan crew was more a live action role playing thing, got completely out of hand than QAnon was. I do think that while Q started off relatively maliciously, I also think that the original intent was a game that the Watkinses were playing that got really out of hand really quickly as people became true adherents. But I think that, as Whitney said, people do like to look for reasons to dunk on things that they hate. And it's real easy to believe a rumor, especially if it's about someone that you already don't like. I do question general humanity when people think that our leaders are eating children in the basements of pizza shops, but I'm not sure how regular people go back to that. But I guess that's where we are now.
So the willingness, what back to Whitney's comment about the willingness to believe anything, even goes as far as seeing the people that you don't like eating children. it goes that far.
Well,
Okay,
I
there
mean-
can be no denying that Trump actively embraced Q messaging because he retweeted many of the postings initially published by Q. The Mueller report documented 101 campaign contacts with Russian operatives in 2016. The grand jury indicted 13 Russian nationals for illegally interfering with the 2016 election. There was just more information put out last week about Russian involvement with the 2016 election. Do you see any parallels to the connection that Trump had with Q in 2020 and to what his campaign did with the Russians in 2016? Whitney, we're going to start with you. You see any parallels?
I mean, do you see any parallels?
Yeah, well, I believe that Trump was going to take whatever help he could get. And the Russians wanted to help him in 2016, and Q wanted to help him in 2020. And he actually took that help in 2016 by saying, Russia, if you're listening, I want Hillary's 30,000 emails. And with Q in 2020, it was, well, Q said it, but I'm reposting it. He reposted the tweets. He put those postings on his tweets. And then when Savannah Guthrie asked him about that, he says, well, it's out there. I'm not saying I believe it, but I just thought, people need to see it. So that's where I see. Alan, you see any parallels?
Well, I mean, I think Donald Trump was obviously being a savvy politician when he probably knew that there was a large portion of the public that had been buying into the whole QAnon. And if he sort of retweeted some of those posts, maybe he didn't believe it, maybe he did, but he sort of gathered or garnered their support by doing so. But other than that, I don't really see any parallels with the 2016 election.
Dan, do you see any parallels?
I kind of feel like this question is a stretch. To what Alan said, absolutely. Donald Trump was reaching out for his target audience, people who liked him, people who were already inclined to agree with him. And if he had a group saying nice things about him, he was pretty famous for embracing that group, even when he really shouldn't have. As far as the retweeting thing, I watched that debate and I was embarrassed for him because Donald Trump is very Twitter savvy, and he always has been very Twitter savvy. Like, that's his thing. That was how he reached out to millions and millions of people right off the bat. He knows that retweets are endorsements. Unless you specifically say otherwise, unless your retweet is literally saying, this is some bullshit right here, it is an endorsement. And everybody on Twitter knows that. And for being as old as he is, he was very, very Twitter savvy. He knew how to use social media very effectively. I will give him that credit, as much as I don't like him. But the retweet, that was a retweet that was bullshit. I don't think that there really was a connection between the Russian interference and Q. The only parallel that I see is that there was misinformation spread by both sides, both Q and Russia. I think that Trump leaned into Q a lot more than he leaned into Russia. Whether or not that was deliberate on his choice, whether he was trying to avoid breaking the law, which I don't think he really cared about, or he just couldn't get his people organized enough to figure out how to get this foreign interference in 2016. I think he was actively seeking Q's assistance. I don't think he was actively taking any steps other than making a comment in public where everyone could see it, so he couldn't be accused of really doing anything nefarious with Russia. I think he wanted the help. I think he would have taken it if he could have figured out how to get it. I don't think he and his people were savvy enough at that time to figure it out.
The Mueller report cited 101 contacts in their report of Trump campaign officials in Russia. So we'll agree to disagree. As Ron Watkins was basking in his new Twitter-generated celebrity status, this was between the election and the inauguration, he announced to the world that he read the operating manual of the Dominion voting machines and personally developed the technical expertise to manipulate the machines into changing votes from Trump to Biden. He claimed he knew how to do it. Trump lawyers Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell took the seed planted by Ron Watkins and blew it up into a gigantic lie about thousands of votes all over the country being changed when Dominion machines operated only in one county in California. Dominion is suing Powell, Giuliani, and a number of news organizations for billions of dollars. Ron only claimed that he figured out how the votes could be changed, not that they did it. Just like the birther movement, whose genesis materialized because Obama's father was Kenyan, this Dominion thing gained traction because of the willingness of certain individuals to lie in further discussions on the topic. I think we see this with Tucker Carlson on a nightly basis. Can this all too common phenomenon be curtailed, or are we just stuck with it? Is there anything we can do about this? Brittany or Whitney, what do you think?
I guess my answer to that is like a big shrug. I don't know, because things like the birther movement just seemed inherently ridiculous. That I mean, you've been presented with proof against your argument, and why are you continuing to argue against that? I guess you can't force people to accept what's true, because they're just gonna, I don't know, people are just gonna do what they want to do. So I don't know if there's a way to circumvent that, or if it's just gonna be putting out fires as they pop up. But
so you think we're stuck with this reality of people just going on and lying and things gaining traction because they keep lying about things?
I mean, if there's a way to not be stuck with that, I haven't thought of it.
Neither have I. That's why I'm asking the question. Alan, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with what Whitney said in that time will tell. You know, the birther movement kind of faded out as no credible evidence was ever produced.
It didn't fade out because it got Trump elected. It got Trump's base established. People who were upset about Obama being our first black president took this thing that Trump was laying out and again, and that became the reason he was so popular initially in the Republican ranks.
See, I didn't get that impression. Otherwise, I would have thought Obama would have lost his second term election, but he was voted for a second term. So I think the American public.
Well, not enough people went with it. In fact, you look at the Republican numbers, they're a big minority. So Obama getting reelected had nothing to do with the establishment of Trump's base.
No, I'm just saying that I think, like the birther movement, nobody really cares about it anymore because no credible evidence was produced. And it'll be the same with this. Time will tell. You know, if evidence comes out in the future that it is true, okay, maybe, you know, but if it's all bunk, then it'll just fade away. But I don't think it's going away anytime soon. What,
the phenomenon of people lying about stuff?
Well, the whole Q Anon, right?
Yeah. What do you think about this phenomenon, Dan? Any chance that it might fade away like Al suggests, or do you think it's something that's going to continue on in our body politic?
People lying about stuff, I think that's a thing that we have always had and probably always will. I don't think the birther thing has faded away as much as people might think, because it started again with Kamala Harris during the last election cycle. So I do suspect that every time we have somebody on a presidential ticket who's not white, we're probably going to be revisiting this question.
We lost your, Dan, we lost your audio. Did you mute yourself? Talk, Dan.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, but you needed to talk in order for me to hear
Okay.
you.
I was speaking that whole time. So I don't think this is anything new. I think people have always been willing to lie about things, and people are just lying in a public. Okay, sorry.
Okay, Pino, okay up there then?
Yeah, he's fine. All right, so third try. I do think that people have always been willing to lie. I think people have been willing to lie about things that are important. I think that it's been part of a global political system for a very, very long time, and that is not going to go away. There are ways to spin things where I might consider what you're saying to be complete and utter fabrication, but there's enough truth that, all right, maybe you did mean it. I do not think birtherism has gone away because it was attempted to be revived against Kamala Harris during the last election cycle. It didn't take hold nearly as much as it did for Obama. Maybe that was because she was the vice presidential candidate. Maybe it was because she was a woman, and maybe because she was not seen as much of a threat. But it was attempted, and I think we're going to be dealing with this whenever we have people of color or people who have a foreign national in their close family for a while now in big national elections. And I do think that that is very sad. As far as Sidney Powell and the Dominion thing, I did see a YouTube video from one of my new favorite channels, Legal Eagle, where they were explaining a bit about the Dominion lawsuit. And apparently the standard is, can you prove whether Sydney and Rudy and all of these people actually believed what they were saying at the time that they were saying it? I personally do not believe that they believed it. I do think that they were trying to fire up people. I don't think that they're going to be free from consequence, but I don't think that multi-billion-dollar lawsuit is going to really be in the multi-billions of dollars, because at the end of the day, they don't have that much money. They've got plenty, but they don't have enough to pay out what Dominion is asking.
So you think they're going to settle? They're going to settle for?
I'm hoping that Dominion drags them through court and that there is no settlement, but I don't think that a judge will award what Dominion is asking for.
Well, he's Fox News is also named as a defendant in that suit.